You are listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast brought to you by Birmingham Live.
Hello and welcome to Claret and Blue, the Aston Villa podcast from Birmingham Live. My name is Matt Davis and I'm filling in for Dan Rollinson, who's off today. So I'm joined by football editor Matt Kendrick to talk about the sad news of today, the passing of Gerard Houllier at the age of 73. Obviously not something we want to talk about, but we'll discuss his life over the next 15 minutes or so, specifically his time at Villa. Matt, I mean, you were covering Villa day-to-day back then. What can you tell us about Gerard Houllier as Villa manager?
Yeah, it's really sad news. We used to refer to him as kind of Uncle Gerard. He was like this kind of warm, older guy who, you know, it's an interesting one because benefit of hindsight, obviously, we can all kind of look back on things with rose-tinted specs, but I genuinely do believe that his time at Villa was too short. Perhaps wasn't the most popular of characters with some of the senior pros in the dressing room when he came in, because he wanted to come in and really kind of up what Villa were in terms of the professionalism, and that's not meant to be a slight on Martin O'Neill and his regime, because we all know how well Villa did under O'Neill, but O'Neill had a kind of more relaxed approach where as long as his 12 or 13 players were turning up and doing the business, then, you know, they could have long weeks off and then report back to do a bit of shape for the next game. Houllier kind of wanted to smash straight through that and say, no, you know, we want double training sessions. We want to be the fittest team. You know, we want to really kind of work hard on knowing the opposition, and, you know, just the kind of levels of preparation that we've probably seen from, you know, maybe not quite Bielsa-like, but the levels of kind of detail that weren't at Villa prior to that. And I think some of the players, you know, if you listen to Gabby Igbalo or give interviews about Gerard Houllier, I think he likened him to a kind of headmaster, a really strict kind of, you know, taskmaster, I suppose. And yeah, it didn't play out that well with some of the people back there. You've got kind of some kind of old school players, shall we say, in the likes of Richard Dunn and James Collins, who were quite happy with the way it had been previously. But having said that, there were signs there. You know, it wasn't a brilliant vintage season for Villa by any means, 2010-11. But somehow, by hook or by crook, given the disruption that was caused at the start of that season, the delay over getting Houllier appointed, and then subsequently Houllier being taken seriously ill again in the April, I think it was, Villa finished 9th, and that wasn't bad going when we look back on what happened over the subsequent 10 years. So, yeah, really fond memories of Gerard Houllier, and just kind of a lot of what ifs if he'd have been out, you know, if his health would have enabled him to stay in charge a little while longer and to put in place the revolution that he was trying to bring.
A lot of people said a lot of nice words about him today. He sounds like a good guy. I mean, what were your experiences of him as a person? If you got too many encounters with him at that time, because it wasn't that long a period, but did you know him fairly well by the end?
Yeah, I think so. I think, and again, people who know me and some of the spats I've got into with various Villa managers probably won't be surprised to know when I say Gerard was the best kind of manager-reporter working relationship that I got during my time covering Villa. That there weren't too many other contenders to rival it. I remember I've just been putting together a kind of comment opinion piece about Gerard. So a few spoilers in this, because I'll refer to all this in that piece as well. One of my enduring memories of Houllier came a couple of days after Villa had gone to Anfield and been battered 3-0. And Houllier, you know, Villa fans, I'm not sure if Villa fans will have forgiven him for this even now, but Houllier, it was his first trip back, you know, first competitive trip back to Anfield since leaving there, and he comes out of the tunnel, walks down the track, and starts applauding the Kop, and just completely ignores the Villa fans, the Villa away fans. And not only that, Villa got battered 3-0 that night, were pretty terrible. And after the match, he comes out and says, "Well, if we could have lost to anybody, I prefer it to be Liverpool." And you think, well, Villa fans didn't really want to hear that, but knowing what he was like, a couple of days later, I was invited to Bodymore for an interview with him, and so I've just written all this. It's fresh in mind. But my nephew, despite being a Brummie, is a Liverpool fan. Boo. So I'd already got a couple of bags of these kind of Liverpool branded bonbons to chuck his way for Christmas, and I turned up at Bodymore with a bag of these for Houllier. And he kind of glared at me at first, and then kind of gave me this mischievous smile, and then gave me this little kind of friendly punch in the guts, as if to say, you git or whatever the French equivalent is. But he was always got that kind of warmth about him. I remember another occasion, I'd been to New Zealand with my family in January, February time, 2000, must have been February, I think, 2011. And for some reason, I came back and I developed shingles. I think you're supposed to get shingles when you're stressed, not when you've had a three-week holiday on the other side of the world. But so I think I missed a couple of press conferences and a game or a couple of games or something. And he took time to pick up the phone and kind of ask how I was and how my trip had been, how the family were. It might sound really minor, but sometimes football managers are so ingrained in their own kind of tunnel vision and their own lives, their own professional lives, that to take time to even do that was a nice touch. Also, there was a situation with him where he invited all the press for a meal. Villa used to have a restaurant in one of the hospitality lounges, and he invited us there for probably a dozen of us, and kind of wined and dined us at his expense or the club's expense. But before he went there, he made sure, found out little bits about all of us, so he got some kind of dinner table conversation. And it's minor things, and football fans rightly will care more about what the manager does with the team on the pitch than how nice or otherwise he is to the local press back. But it's just things like that stick closely in your mind, really.
You talked about the decline that followed, in the years after that. I mean, should Houlier's reputation be rehabilitated a bit amongst Villa fans for the job he actually did? Because, things did go quite wrong after that. I
think it was probably the time that Randy Lerner properly fell out of love with Villa. Let's not forget that Houllier was given 18 million rising to 24 million quid to spend on Darren Bent. Now, whether Randy Lerner would have loosened the purse strings for that if Villa weren't kind of under threat of relegation around that time, I'm not sure. But I think when Houllier left and when Villa not only stayed up but managed to stay up and finish ninth that season, and Gary McAllister, Houlier's assistant, did a really good job of kind of steadying the ship in difficult circumstances and keeping Villa competitive. But I think it was still, I think Villa fans, probably myself included, probably thought that Villa were still contenders, were still competitive enough to push for Europe that season. They finished in Europe 3 times in a row, 3 successive sixth place finishes under Martin O'Neill. So probably, over time, I think probably people will appreciate the job that Houllier did. I think perhaps one of his mistakes was trying to bring about kind of revolution rather than evolution, if you like. O'Neill had got a well-drilled dressing room who knew what they wanted to do. Houllier came straight in and said, regardless of what you've been done previously, we're doing it my way. Did that work? I'm not sure. Would it have worked over time? I think it probably would, because I think he would have brought really, really good habits into that place. You look at some of the kids in that dressing room. Mark Albrighton hasn't got a bad word to say about Houllier. Really, really pleased with how he brought him along and how he prompted his development. Barry Bannon, likewise. I think Houllier compared him to Xavi, I think, which was quite a hard act to live up to. But I mean, I've just saying that out loud reminds me of that game against Manchester United when Villa were flying. They got about 5 or 6 or 7 youth teamers playing. Eric Lehigh, Mark Albrighton, Barry Bannon, Jonathan Hogg, and it looked like, I think, I can't remember what we call it. I think I come up with some crap name, the equivalent of Fergie's fledglings. I can't remember what it was, but it might have been Gerard's Juniors or something particularly corny like that. But back then we thought, crikey, is this the future? I mean, Villa subsequently blew that and drew 2-2 in that game, but it gave us a really, really good glimpse of what could be. It never happened. Houllier was taken ill, another heart attack in April time, I think it was. After that, it was the McLeish debacle, then a couple of years of Lambert, and it's been a rebuilding act ever since. Now, if Villa could finish 9th or above this season, I think it would be a wonderful tribute to to Houllier because nobody's achieved it since.
Just lastly then, do you think maybe when you look at what he did at Liverpool and the job he's done in France with young players there, maybe he was the right manager, just the wrong time at Villa? Succeeding O'Neill was always going to be a tough ask for the way he wanted to do it.
I think probably so, yeah. I think this sounds really ridiculous for a man who was 63 years old when he joined Villa and already probably had his best glory days behind him, but he's probably a little bit ahead of his time at Villa in a strange way. I don't think the Villa squad that he inherited were quite ready for him. I mean, let's not forget that the timing and manner of O'Neill's departure already put Villa at a disadvantage that season. They were already playing catch up. Then I think there was a little bit of a delay extricating Houllier from his commitments with the French FA. So I think Houllier rocking up at Villa in a different time with his health, a lot more kind of stable than it was, could have been a really good thing. I'm still pleased that Villa had the privilege of him being their manager. People can probably see that I've got a great deal of fondness for him, so perhaps I'm seeing it a little bit too sentimentally, especially given how upsetting today's news is. But yeah, I remember. I mean, I've kept in semi-regular contact with him since he's left. I pick up the phone probably a couple of times a year to get his opinion on what's happening at Villa, and text him occasionally. But I think my last face-to-face meeting with him would have been back at Villa Park back in 2011 when I think by sheer coincidence he was back at Villa Park saying his farewell, taking photos in the stadium, giving his handshakes to the staff at Villa Park, a day when I was playing in a sponsors game, Villa Park. And I remember just bumping into him in the tunnel at the end. I think he said something like, kind of, I'm giving up my day job, but you don't give up your day job or something. So whether we witnessed 5 minutes of me dragging my fat backside around the Villa Park pitch, I don't know. But handshake, a hug, and it was just a nice farewell. The only other one, I know I'm rambling a little bit, but the only other one thing that I wanted to note, and again I note this in this kind of little mini obituary kind of comment piece, is I remember that January 2011, obviously Villa pulled off the Darren Bent deal. I think they signed John McCoon, and I think they signed Carl Walker on loan as well. But there was quite a strong pursuit of Charlie Adam from Blackpool that time. And Ian Holloway, I think Ian Holloway obviously wanted to keep Charlie Adam or drive his price up as Blackpool manager. And I think he was really insulting about Villa. I think he accused Villa of being a half-arsed club or something with a manager on a sticky wicket. I know Houllier was pretty upset and pretty offended about that. So never want to miss a trick. When Villa played Blackpool away the following month in early February, I remember saying to Holloway at the end of the game, said, "Oh, have you apologised to Gerard Houllier for the for the things you said?" And Holloway got the hump and said, "What do you mean? What do you mean what I said?" I said, "Well, about manager on a sticky wicket, Villa being a half-arsed club." I said, I know it upset Houllier quite a lot. And he said, "Well, oh, you know that, do you? I said, "Yeah, he told me." He said, "Well, is he a friend of yours?" And I actually said, "Yeah, I think he is actually. I think he's a friend of mine." Probably wouldn't have said that about another football manager, but that's what I do regard him as. I'm not saying we're best buddies who go drinking red wine together or whatever, but he was a very warm character, a very capable manager, a very bright, shrewd tactician. And I think you probably nailed it, Matt, by saying, right man at the wrong time. But I'm privileged that I've met him. I found him to be a really, really lovely fella. Obviously, thoughts and sympathies are with his family and his close friends at the moment. But I think football's lost a great guy, a great ambassador, and a great mind. So rest in peace, Gerard. Thanks for the memories. I'm sorry it was so brief.
Thank you for listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please let us know. We love hearing your feedback. We'll be back soon with another episode. Until then, up the Villa.